right, welcome to the Restless Insomniac podcast. Today's episode is called Expectations and Experience of Being in the Army. So I say Army because I haven't been in any other branch of the military and I have experience in the Army. So that's why I'm dedicating this episode specifically to the Army because I can't speak of other branches. All right, let's just get into it. Why I joined the military. So I joined the military. My family has a long history of being in the military. My grandfather was in the military. My father was in the military. Unfortunately, he passed away. But I joined because I kind of wanted to continue that legacy and be part of something, bigger. And also at the time, I was kind of lost, and as far as my direction in life, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. College wasn't going too good. I didn't choose the right degree. I never finished that degree, which was music. I didn't finish it, and I felt like I needed something to kind of just make me feel that I'm doing something good. And so I joined the military for those reasons. My expectations of the military, my sister was married to an Air Force soldier, and I would see him coming from work because I got to stay with him for a little bit. And, like he would tell me about his day and he would tell me like what he does. And I found it very interesting. And so that's another reason why I joined. But, my expectations, I didn't want to join the Air Force. I wanted to join the Army because my family was in the Army. But, I expected like all these, like I expected, I would see these commercials and I would think, oh, I'm going to do all those cool things in the military. I can't wait to start. And so that's when I started getting more into it. So the next thing, how to join the military in general? Well, first you got to go to a recruiter. And then from there, you take like a pre-test, which is called the ASVAB, and you take like a pre-test before the actual big test. And I scored pretty good on the pre-test, and so from there I was able to go to take the actual test, which is called ASVAB. That day was I was nervous, and I was hoping that I was going to do a good job. The ASVAB consists of just kind of basic things that you should know, like words, like certain words, or like math, word problems, and stuff like that. So I had to take some training on that before I started to take the test because I was nervous. But I ended up scoring pretty good. I don't remember exactly what I scored, but I know I passed. And so it came down to my MOS, which is the job that you're going to pick. My recruiter, he told me if I wanted to join the infantry and stuff like that. And I said, no, not infantry. Like, it doesn't sound like something I'd want to do. Eventually, he called me and he called me very early in the morning. I think it was like at 7 a.m. He told me, man, I got this amazing job for you. It's really cool. You should check it out. He sent me a link to the video about the MOS, and it was chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear specialist. Already off the bat, that name sounded really cool. So I was interested. And I saw the video, and I saw all the cool things you get to do, and they showed they showed soldiers like out in the field wearing their gas masks. They showed them in tanks, doing decon, doing recon. And, I found it very interesting. And I thought, what, this is something that I feel like I can do. And who knows, I could probably take this to, after I leave, take it to the civilian world and, apply it there and get a good job. So I ended up picking that MOS. But before I picked it, he told me, "All right, you want that job? Okay, but it's gonna take. You have to leave in 2 weeks." And I thought, oh my God, 2 weeks. That's crazy. But I was like, I'm ready. I was working at Big Lots at the time, so I mean, it's not like had a really good job. It was just like a starter job, like it was Big Lots. Um, and I just like stocked the shelves and all that. So I had to tell them, I'm going into the military, and I leave in 2 weeks. And so they're like, oh, okay, leave in 2 weeks. So I worked my last 2 weeks and then I left, and I went to MEPS, which is a military entrance processing station. There they kind of that's where you go to take some test, but it's more a physical test. They try to kind of weed you out to see who's gonna make it, who's not gonna make it. They would ask us questions like, "Have you ever smoked marijuana? Have you ever done any drugs?" I'm not sure if you would get kicked out if you said yes. I had never done it before, so it was easy for me to say, no, I never done that before. But some other people I think said yes, but I wasn't sure like if they got in or not. But anyways, they make you do a bunch of physical stuff in MEPS, just to make sure you're okay and you can make it and you could like make it in basic training and all that. So I eventually passed. It took like an all day thing, but I passed. And then finally, with those who passed, we went to a hotel that we stayed at with the recruiter that was taking us. And the night before basic training, it was a chill night. I stayed with a buddy of mine, or not really a buddy of mine that I knew, but just a person I would call a friend that I met at MEPS. And we were just staying at the hotel and we ordered some pizza and it was just a nice time. We just chilled, watched TV, ate some pizza, and it was almost kind of like our last meal before going to basic training. So, I was kind of feeling kind of nervous and all that. But anyways, next day passed and before basic training, we went to an area where it kind of gets you ready for basic training. And that's where they shave your head and, like they had to shave my head. They give you some tips to like how to pass basic training and all that. That's where you get your uniform and all your gear to be ready for basic training. So yeah, we were there for about 3 to 4 days. And then it was time to go to actual basic training. So the day of, we got up on a bus, a bunch of us, and we were just driving to basic training. That place took it was at Fort Jackson, and I think it took about 6 hours to get there. Or 10 hours, I'm not sure, honestly, because we went from Florida to Fort Jackson. And as we were getting closer and closer and closer, I think we had it was down the road when we were almost there, basic training, and the bus driver plays the song Three Little Birds from Bob Marley. And, it was a kind of a chill moment. Everybody was just listening to the music. Everybody was quiet. And we didn't know what to expect. We don't know what's going to happen once we get there. But it was the fact that he put that song on, like he did it on purpose for it, so that we can be like relaxed and chill. But he knew what was coming, the bus driver. As soon as we showed up and that door opens for the bus, a drill sergeant just walks right into the bus and starts yelling at everyone. And he was cussing and everything. He was like, "Get the fuck off the bus right now. Go, 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 go." And it was just crazy. And I found out this is called Shark Attack. It's a very chaotic moment, but it's called Shark Attack. And it always happens to every person that goes into basic training. And so we just got yelled at so many times. We had to get off the bus running. I dropped my bag. I dropped some stuff. I had to go get it again. I got yelled at for leaving stuff behind. It was just crazy. I had buddies of mine that were falling on the floor, getting dirty. It was just the craziest moment of my life. And we were just getting yelled at for anything. And it wasn't just one drill sergeant that was yelling at us, it was multiple drill sergeants. And that first day was so chaotic. It was crazy, but I pushed through it. I think I lost what's called the blue book, which had like basic stuff for like what a soldier needs to follow. It has like the soldier's creed and all that. I dropped that book and during the shark attack, and eventually when they told me if I had my blue book, like a few days later, I told them I didn't have it. I lost it, and I got yelled at for that. And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, drill sergeant, Roger, drill sergeant. Like, I won't lose it again." It was just crazy because like you would get yelled at for anything. But anyways, your typical day, as the days pass by, they're not as intense as that first day. The typical day would be like waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning. That's something I had to get used to. Like I didn't, not that I woke up late or anything in the past, but waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and they kind of rush you to be ready by 6 for PT. And, we would do our PT, and, they would absolutely push you to the limit, making sure that you were training and you were getting ready for the real world. And yeah, it was just crazy. And then as far as like eating, we had 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When I say we had to eat fast, we had to eat super fast. We couldn't even talk to your buddy next to you. You couldn't look up. You had to look at your food, and you had to just wolf down everything really fast, hurry up, put your tray away, and go outside and be in formation, and wait for everybody else. Yeah, it was just crazy. Eating like that fast, it wasn't as hard because I tended to be pretty hungry by that time, and I would just eat pretty fast. As far as basic training phases go, there was the red, white, and blue phase. So it was the red phase, white phase, and blue phase. And every phase, like, the red phase is pretty crazy. The white phase is a little more relaxed, but it's still pretty crazy. And the blue phase is a lot more relaxed. Every phase lasted about 3 months, I believe. So it took a while for basic training to end. But I was going through the phases just fine. The meals that I had to eat was called MREs, meal ready to eat. Those were pretty bad. Those are meals that have like 2,000 calories in it, but it's, the point is to have enough calories to last you like a whole day, basically. There were some that were good, some that were bad, but there's one that I liked a lot. It was like chili macaroni or something like that. Those tasted pretty good, but other ones were like pretty bad that tasted terrible, but you just had to eat it no matter what. The shooting range, I had never shot a weapon before, so I was nervous to see if I'm even gonna pass. We went to practice, and they taught us the basic styles of shooting and how to shoot. And I was a blank canvas, so I was ready to take in all the information like a sponge, and so I did pretty good on that. I shot pretty good. I learned what they taught me. I was actually out shooting other people because some people had been shooting for a long time, and they had like their way of shooting, and the military has their way of shooting. And so some of those people struggled, but I did pretty good. And then it came the day that we were going to actually qualify to see if you're a good shooter or not. I was nervous, but they gave us tips on how to pass and all that. Turns out I ended up being an expert shooter, and that was something that like caught me off guard. We were out in the field and we were shooting targets that were moving up and down, and it was 40 targets, and I shot 38 out of 40. And I was pretty impressed. I was like, I did pretty good. I think there was only one person that outshot me, and she got 39. She did pretty good. And but yeah, everybody was like, "Wow, yeah, have you ever shot before? That's crazy. You did such a good job." And I was like, "Dude, I don't know how I did it, but I did it." And that was a good time. I got a little badge and a coin from an officer for it. So it was a good time. It was my first coin. Um, I will say that there was something that I noticed in basic training that I was not good at. Anything that was upper body, I did pretty good, but I noticed that my legs and maybe my core a little bit was weak. And I never did good in running. Like, I did okay in running, but I did good at push-ups and sit-ups. Um, but we had to wake up one day real early in the morning, like at 4, and we had to get ready for this ruck march. And I believe it was like 12 miles or 16 miles. It was something insane. And I packed my bags a little too heavy that day. And we went on the ruck march, and I just started noticing my legs were giving out. I was extremely tired. I was falling behind. Even my back was hurting. It was something that I know I needed to improve on, but I didn't give up. I just pushed through it. And eventually I made it towards the end, but I was absolutely defeated by the end of that. Because it was just insane. Another thing that we did the gas chamber. This is when you're wearing your gas mask and you're wearing your mop gear, which is like the uniform that you wear for in case there's like a chemical threat. Basically, the gas chamber is you go into this big room, and they have, I believe, riot gas in there, and it's just all over the place. And you're just in there, and you're not taking in any of the gas because you have your equipment on. But then they tell you have to take your mask off. And that caught me off guard, and I was like, "Oh my God, we got to take our mask off." And once I took it off, I felt so much. I don't even know how to explain it, but like my eyes were hurting, my skin was like hurting too, and my throat was hurting, and I had to. My drill sergeant told me I need to chant the Soldier's Creed, and so I had to say the Soldier's Creed while taking in this gas in my mouth. And I barely made it through it, but I did it. My eyes were watery. I think I had snot coming out of my nose. I mean, I wasn't the only one. Everybody was like this. And so they get us out of there, and then you gotta like clean up, and you gotta fix yourself, put yourself together again. It was crazy. Something that I've noticed when I was in basic training, I had a difficult time falling asleep some nights because I felt like I was out of breath. I didn't have like a lot of air in my lungs. Eventually, come to find out, I developed asthma somehow. I never had asthma before, so I don't know what happened or how it happened. If it was just like pollen in the air, or if it was the gas chamber that did that to me. But I developed asthma, and I needed to have an inhaler at the time. But I didn't say anything during basic training because I didn't want to get kicked out. So after basic training, I went to like a doctor, and they gave me like inhaler and all that. But I was afraid during basic training to tell anybody that I had. Well, I didn't know I had asthma, but I was afraid of telling them that I had difficulty breathing because I didn't want to get kicked out. Another thing that happened during basic training, there are these vehicles called Humvees, and they're just military vehicles that you see on the movies and all that. And while I was in the back of the vehicle, there was a few of us in the back hanging out. There was a driver, and then there was a passenger seat. Um, we were just waiting because we were about to take off, and then the drill sergeant, he throws like he throws a grenade underneath, not a grenade, but like a gas grenade like underneath the Humvee, and the gas blows up and it goes like everywhere, and everybody had to put on their mask real quick while we were on the vehicle. And for some reason, the driver, instead of putting his mask on, he just went forward. He just like pedaled to the metal, and we were just like, we went off like crazy. We ended up crashing into this barrier, and we almost got pretty hurt. Like, I didn't get hurt and nobody else got hurt, but it was, the drill sergeant was like saying that he has never seen a Humvee move like that before, because it was just so chaotic in the moment. I believe that was his fault, the drill sergeant. That was kind of dangerous to do, but I mean, it was whatever. And then, towards the end of basic training, I ended up buying like this book where it has pictures of us, like of my squad and platoon in basic training, and you can have other people sign it for you, like when you're off to your duty station. And a friend of mine signed it, and he wrote that last slice of freedom. And when I read that, I just remembered that time that we were in the room and we were just watching TV and eating pizza. And I'm like, I know that's what he meant. And I was like, yep, that is the last slice of freedom. And off we went, and off I went to my duty station, which was Fort Hood. And Fort Hood was just crazy. A lot of bad things have happened in Fort Hood. But I was excited to go, and it's my duty station, and yeah, it had some good times, had some bad times. I got to work with some vehicles called Strikers, and they were just the one I had. There's this giant. They look like giant tanks, and they're used for, the one we had was used for reconnaissance. And it was basically, we would go out into the field and we would detect chemical threats out in the field, and we had to report back. And we would take samples of the ground, and we would take samples of the air. And, it was something very new to me, but I was able to do a good job on that. I eventually became a driver, and I was driving those vehicles, but I also was, as a passenger, I would run the computers and stuff in the back, and it kind of reminded me of those commercials that I saw initially when I was a civilian. But it was a good time. Eventually, I got to run the gas chamber, kind of like in basic, so I got to be the person who's actually running it. And it was just funny to see, like, to be on the other side of that, and not having to deal with it, and seeing other soldiers having to chant the Soldier's Creed, and like, I had my mask on. I was just like, ha ha ha, tables have turned. But it was a good time. Eventually it came to a point about a year and a half into my military career. We got orders to deploy to Egypt. And I thought, Egypt? What's happening in Egypt? Like, I don't know what's going on. And I guess we were gonna be part of a thing called MFO, which stand for Multinational Force Observers. And it was basically it was just keeping the peace between I think it was Egypt and I forgot honestly the other place, but we were just keeping the peace and make sure like nothing goes wrong over there. But yeah, we traveled on this big plane that took us there, and I believe it was like I'd say over 24 hours the flight. But we stopped at a few places first. We stopped at Romania, and we were there for quite a few hours. We didn't do much there. We were just hanging out there, waiting for the plane to arrive, or waiting for the plane to be ready again. And then from there, we went straight to Egypt. Now that I remember, um, yeah, and we got there early in the morning. Everybody was tired. I have some pictures that I have on my Facebook that show like how tired I looked. But I was there. I was happy. I was like, I'm in Egypt. I'm deployed. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do. Our deployment lasted about 9 months, and during that time, I was doing 12-hour shifts in like these towers that we would have to kind of just like observe everything around, guarding the base. So it'd be 12-hour shifts. I also got to be a lifeguard. I trained as a lifeguard, and a few of us did before deploying to Egypt, because there was on base there was like a beach that we had. It was small, but they needed to have lifeguards there for whenever like any soldier would get in the water. Well, there always needs to be a lifeguard. That was fun. That was a good time. I did like 30% lifeguard, and then like the other 70% I was doing the 12-hour shifts. We would do morning and nights. I like nights more, because I felt like the days would go by faster, and there wasn't really much to do. You kind of just chilled in there. I would just listen to music, and I had all my gear on. I had my weapon, and it was just like a relaxing time to do it at night. I wasn't a big fan of doing it in the morning, um, but those shifts would really mess with you because you're constantly changing from night to morning or midday, 12-hour shifts, and it was just like I had to get used to that. Um, a fun fact, or maybe not fun fact, but I remember there was a day that I had off, and I decided, I'm gonna go to that little beach area that the base has, and I went there, and it was nice. There was like a skull that one of the guys would throw in. It was a plastic skull. They would throw in the water, and you had to go get it. And it was pretty deep. Where they threw it for me, and when I went to go get it, I saw it, and it was like I think it was more than 12 feet, and I never go down 12 feet like that. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it anyways, and so I went down. I'm pretty sure it was past 12 feet. And as I'm swimming down, I'm going, I'm underwater. I'm going deeper and deeper, trying to reach the skull. Um, Eventually, my ears pop out of nowhere. Like I was going deep for the wrong way. My ears pop, but I keep going, and I grab the skull. And when I lift off from the sand to go up, like I suddenly got dizzy, and I'm just swimming. I think I'm swimming up, and the world is like going up and down as I'm swimming up. Like my eyes or something were just everything was just chaotic, and I thought I was swimming up, and my buddy said, "No, dude, you were swimming like sideways. You weren't swimming up." And then when I got up and I finally reached, I was able to catch my breath. Everything was moving up and down. I almost drowned basically because I pushed it way too far. And so I had to be out there for like 10 minutes to relax, and then I was able to swim back. But I literally almost drowned out there. And this was the Red Sea. So I could say that, like, I would tell people, oh, yeah, I almost drowned in the Red Sea. It was pretty crazy. Another funny thing that happened while we were deployed, um, we never got to drink alcohol at all, while we were deployed, or, what we thought we couldn't drink alcohol. Because there was this bar at the base, but it was always empty. There was nobody there. There was no bartender. But there was one night, just one night, they let us drink. And you had a limit of 3 drinks. And that's it. You can't have any more than that. And so, some people got like whiskey and like beers and stuff like that. I stuck with beer. I'm like, oh, I want to drink a beer. And my buddy and mine were like, we're going to drink alcohol, we're going to drink beer. And we got these cans, the giant cans of beer. They look like Monster or the liquid death cans. They kind of look like that. And we were just drinking, and we would get our second one and drink, and then we got our third one and drink. And I felt like I was super drunk. And I was like, this is only 3 beers. How am I super drunk? And my buddy was also the same way. He was like insanely drunk. And when we look at the can, we notice that this alcohol has about 30% alcohol in it per can. And so we were just hammered. We were like, and mind you that the normal beers have 5 to 6 alcohol in it. This had 30%, and we had no clue. We didn't read it. We just were drinking. And it was just so chaotic too. Like, I ended up throwing up. He was throwing up. The next day I was like hungover, and it was just crazy. Another thing that I did while I was in Egypt was a ruck march. We had to do this really long ruck march. I think it was 12 miles. It wasn't as bad as basic training, but it was like 12 miles, and we had to kind of do laps around the whole base. And I had this NCO, which is a non-commissioned officer, which is basically a sergeant. He did not like me at all. He kind of despised me, and he was monitoring how many laps I was doing. And on my final lap, I was like happy. I'm like, I'm almost there to the finish line. And when I hit the finish line, he was like, you have to do one more lap. And I was like, what? I did all the laps. And he's like, no, I only counted this much. And I was like, wow. And so I had to do one more lap. And I knew it was, he just didn't like me. He just decided to say that I had one more lap to go. But, I ended up, I couldn't finish because I was so tired. So I only made it halfway through that lap. And I couldn't get a medal for that because he had me do another lap when I did all the laps. But it is what it is. I didn't say anything because like it's my word against the sergeant, and I'm gonna lose all day every day. But I couldn't get a medal for that, for completing it, which was unfortunate, but it's okay. I still think about it sometimes. I'm like, this guy, I can't believe he did that. But anyways, towards the end of this deployment, um, we stopped at Ireland. We got to drink like one beer. I think it was a Guinness. Yeah, and it was fun. We just drank one beer, and then we just kept going. We landed back in Texas. We returned to Fort Hood. And we had about 1 month off in, when we get back. Just 1 month off. It was a good time. I didn't have to do anything. I was kind of lazy, honestly. I was sleeping in late. But we had our 1 month off. I also visited some family during that time. Um, and then during my last year, I had a situation where I had to get a hip surgery because my left hip was damaged, and I'm sure it was damaged because of basic training and my time in Egypt, and it was just wear and tear, and so I had to get like hip surgery. Um, they wanted to medically discharge me from the military, and I was all for it, but they wanted to monitor me for another 9 months. They just wanted to see like, does he really need to be medically discharged? And my time was coming up. I had my contract with the military that was going to end, and they wanted me to extend my time in the military just to monitor me. I decided, what? No, I'm not. I'm not going to extend. I'm just going to complete my contract and get out. Um, I got out as an honorable discharge. It wasn't medically discharged, but it was honorable discharge, and that was it. That was my military career, um, and I like to talk about the benefits that you get when you leave the military. You have a lot of VA benefits for those who want to know. You have a lot of VA benefits, especially if you're like 100% discharge. You get a compensation for the rest of your life, which is like passive income, which is amazing. There's one way that if you are if the sum of your disabilities is 100%, then you get this payment for the rest of your life, but you could still work. You're allowed to work, so that would be like two incomes, which is nice. Also, you have benefits for education. You have the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is what I used when I got out, and which is what I'm using right now to finish. I was kind of on and off when I got out of the military. I was a little lost. I didn't know what to do as a civilian. Eventually, I went back to school, but I didn't finish. I went for information technology, and I did not finish. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I went to UNT. I didn't do so good there, and I thought that maybe college wasn't for me. And eventually, I landed on Texas Tech after a few years of like doing odd jobs here and there. I landed at Texas Tech, and I was using the remainder of my post 9/11 GI Bill to finish, and here I am in my senior year, about to finish, and I'm really excited to graduate. My military experience wasn't as bad as others because I had some good times, some bad times. Um, but for those who are, those young people who are interested in joining the military, would I recommend it? Kind of like yes and no. Like, yes, because there are a lot of benefits that you get out of it, especially if you get out with like 100% disability. Like, it depends on what your disability is. If you're 100% and you could work, that's amazing. The educational benefits are amazing. You basically get they pay for your school. The VA pays for your training in school and for your education. And that's what's happening with me right now. And yeah, for those very interested in it, I would say um, I would say no. Also, if you're not fully committed to it, you join the military, you have to be very committed, and you have to focus, and you need to be able to change. What they do in basic training is like they break you down and they build you back up, basically, which is what happened with me. I had some bad habits, and eventually, they built me back up into a soldier, and I started my military career. But I just wanted to share my experience with y'all, because the military isn't exactly what some people make it out to be. It's not like sunshine and rainbows and it's perfect and you do all these cool jobs you see on the TV and all that. You don't get to do all of that. There's some things you do, but a lot of things you won't do. But if you're interested in joining the military, just I always tell people, if you want to join the military, join the Air Force, not the Army, because I've seen like the Air Force is a lot more relaxed. Some people call it the chair force because it's just as a soldier you're just sitting down all day in an office, which is nice compared to me that was always out in the field doing stuff, um, out there grinding in the field, surviving. But yeah, for those who want to join, there's some good things, but just know there are some bad things too. And fortunately, even though I wanted to get deployed to like Iraq or something like that, I didn't get to. I ended up getting deployed to Egypt, but I really wanted to go to Iraq. But just know that that's also a possibility for anyone who wants to join, that you might go overseas to somewhere you don't want to go. And that's another thing, the military, you don't really get to pick where you're stationed at. It's wherever the military needs you at. So the Army would tell me, okay, we need you at Fort Hood, go to Fort Hood. Or if we need you in Florida, go to Florida. But yeah, that is my military experience. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.